We don't take our brain with us to the other side. It's full of gunk. It's full of junk. Look at it. We remember everything, things that aren't good for us and things we don't need there. But the things that touch our heart, and there we're back to the love, those are the things we remember.
The following podcast is a Healthydoc production. Welcome to the Healthydoc Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nigma Talib. I'm a leading naturopathic doctor now for over 20 years, and I've consulted thousands of patients with chronic illnesses. I've had clinics all over the world, and I have a #1 bestseller, Younger Skin Starts in the Gut. Listen, I know there's a lot of health information out there in the health and wellness world, and it can be a bit overwhelming. So I'm here to set the record straight and give you my expertise along with my expert guests here in studio in sunny Los Angeles.
I only take drugs with other people who take them on a regular basis because I don't have time for that.
A lot of chronic diseases stem from mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yes. And you know what I love talking about, right? Poop.
Yes. You can ask me about my poop?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about poop.
Okay, please.
This podcast is your go-to for achieving optimal wellness from the best of beauty and longevity and everything in between, because after all, wellness comes from the inside out. Welcome to the Healthydoc Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nigma Talib. Today, I have an incredible guest. She's going to take us on a journey beyond the physical realm. She is an incredible author. She is an intuitive medium. She's a soul healer. She's also a grief specialist and an addiction counselor. And she's written the most incredible book, Infinite Life and Infinite Lessons. I met her at a Goop gathering, and this was around 2018, and our souls connected right away. Mm-hmm. And I am so excited to be able to interview her today. I want to welcome Susan Grau. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm so excited to be here with you.
And congratulations on your book. I love it so much. It's been really hard to put down and really hard to interview you on specifics of it. So I'm going to use my intuition and flip to certain chapters and ask you questions on some of them using my intuition. It was so cool the way we met, huh?
Yeah, it was so fun though. When we were at that Goop event and you were standing a ways from me and our eyes locked. And I was a little uncomfortable because I was new at doing what you do and what they do. And you just kind of locked into me and I walked over to you and we just started chatting and there it was. And you had on this beautiful skirt with these boots and I thought, oh my God, she's so gorgeous. And I just wanted to get closer to you because you just had this beauty radiating from you. And that's what I'm always looking for is that energy, that energetic feel.
That love, right? Yeah. That feeling. I know you were nervous because it was your first Goop event and you immediately told me your story about how you got started on this journey. So let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
I know you've probably told this story a million times. And I think every time you tell it, I can hear the emotion that comes from you. And how could you not? Because this is where your journey started and how it got you into this healing phase. Could you share with us where your journey started with becoming a soul healer?
Well, I already could see things when I was about 3.5 years old. I remember having animals on our land transition and I could see them floating. And it just was. I didn't think anything. Be like us going out in the rain and me saying, are you wet? You would be wet. And so I didn't know any different. And so I never thought anything about it. And then at 4.5 years old, some boys told me if I got in the unplugged freezer, which I didn't know was unplugged, in our garage, which we weren't supposed to be, mm-hmm. and got them popsicles, I could play with them. So they opened up the garage door, which I wasn't capable of doing. I was too little. And I climbed into the freezer and they closed the freezer door. And I was facing inward and I actually thought I was part of a game. I had no idea. And then I heard the garage door thud and I realized I'm in trouble. And my first instinct was to scream at the top of my lungs and nobody was coming. And that scream of terror is a very high-pitched sound. So my mother, the garage was separated from our house, and my mother heard screaming, but she thought it was the cats in heat, quite honestly, because that's the sound they make.
Right.
And it's just that high-pitched sound, but that's also the sound of terror, and I was in terror. And I turned to kind of wherever I could turn my head, and I'm screaming and I'm trying to find a crack somewhere. It's pitch black. It's not plugged in. And I saw 3 lights, and I heard stop screaming. And I kept screaming, as little. It's very emotional for me, so please excuse me if I sniffle.
Yeah.
And I kept screaming, and then I heard one of them just almost like look me in the eye, but there were no eyes.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like, and said, "Stop screaming, Susie. We're going to get your mommy." And then I felt this feeling like, but first, they didn't say it, but I felt it. And I was at the bottom of a stairwell just like that. And it was an old, and I'm going to explain it as an adult woman because as a child, I couldn't give you words.
Right.
I didn't recognize what it was. But it was an old Greco-Roman room and stairs that were cracked, and there were pillars and they were cracked, and there was an open ceiling. And I just knew there was something in the middle of that room that I needed to get to. I just knew it. And the minute I thought it, I was there because I was thinking, how am I going to get up these stairs? And then I was just there. And I was at the edge of a well. And I was looking into this well, which now I know through Dr. Raymond Moody, who I studied under, that it was my tunnel. But I didn't know that most of my life. I always called it the well. I said, why am I not seeing the tunnel? Why did
You were calling it a well. Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Right.
And the next thing, I was looking into this darkness, and I saw words. And looking back, it looked like one consciousness, DNA, and it was love, but it was also prayers or hopes or dreams. And I would hear things like, "My mommy has cancer. Please don't let her die, God." Or another one I heard was, "I'm turning 16. Please make my dad get me a car because he said no. Please, God, make him get me a car." So I was hearing all these different words and desires and dreams, and I didn't know what I was hearing. And I asked the angels, that I call them my lights, the angels, light angels. And I said, "Where am I?" And they said, "You're in the room of heart's desires." And I asked them, "Do you answer all those?" And they said, "No, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them." And then I just proceeded on that journey, going to different places. I went to a place called the Yellow Brick Road, what I called the Yellow Brick Road. People ask me, "How do you remember all this?" And I said, "Do you remember the Wizard of Oz? Do you remember the ruby slippers? Do you remember the Tin Man and the lion and what they were there for and how she got there?" And they go, "Yeah, yeah." And I go, "How old were you when you watched it?" "Well, I was about 5, yeah." That's how it is there. It's very, very, everything's metaphorical, at least to a child. I work with children who have near-death experiences. I hear the same stories. And so I related it to something so that I could remember and understand. And so I called it the Yellow Brick Road.
Wow.
And it was golden pavers, and they were paving paths. And I don't know how far you want me to go in this story. It goes on.
Yeah. How long does this go on for? Like, how long were you in?
Well, they said anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours. And that's because my mom heard your baby's in the freezer.
Right.
And my mother had been put in a hospital for seeing spirits. So both my mother, my sister, and my brother had this gift. And she was medicated, unfortunately. And so she didn't listen to her intuition and what she had heard. And so she did nothing. And she heard it three times in total. The third time is when she actually came out. And during that time, I was just on a journey, amazing journey. I got to see the room of knowledge, which people call the Akashic Records. And I got to see people planning their journeys, and they explained to me, I was hearing people say, "I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to learn this, and my soul's going to expand because I'm going to go through this pain." And I watched the angels or the guides or whoever they were looking at them and saying, "Oh, no, that's too much. It's too much in one lifetime." Call it the PhD in hardship, which I think I chose, with all my loss and everything.
Right.
And they tried to discourage, but they left it alone and said, "Well, you do have free will." And then they were gone.
Just like that.
And I asked where they went, and they said they're in their they went to their new incarnation, and I didn't know what that meant. Years later, somebody said to me, "Susan, do you believe in reincarnation?" I was about 11 years old, and I went, "Oh my God, there's that word."
Right.
Wow. I mean, it really shocked me to have that word come in front of me, and then I recognized what they meant. And I popped into the room of companions, which I'm looking at your beautiful pup. And that was our animals and all animals, all creatures that I could see that felt safe to me. And remember, it's metaphorical and I'm a child and they're trying to show me things. And I ended up out in this beautiful field. But right before that, when I was on the yellow brick road, they told me they removed these golden pavers that people were putting down. And basically, just to make it a little shorter, they told me that what you try to control controls you, Susie, and what you run from chases you. Remember this on your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see a wall shift, and if you see another one shift, and if you do this, at some point you'll see us paving your path. We are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it. And so, that was, and they said, you think with your mind
Right.
on any your humanness, what is right for you. We know what is right for you.
And you were 4.5 years old when this all happened.
Yep.
And at that age you don't have as many inhibitions or, you're just saying it the way it is, the way you saw it, which is, I think, really interesting. And also, I think it's really important to acknowledge to the listeners is that we have a mind, we have a body, and we have a soul. And the soul is quite often removed from being too woo-woo, and as a doctor, and, of course, I studied in medicine, like looking at, psychology, physiology, anatomy, we look at science the way we look at science. There is a treatment and there is a symptom. And the beauty of naturopathic medicine is we are healers in the sense is we're looking at the root cause, but in a scientific way.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using science, but we're using it at an underlying cause. But I don't discount anything I ever listen to because patients tell me things and I feel a real deep connection to my patients. And I feel our souls, just as you and I met, you connect at a soul level. And, you sort of wonder, why does your patient choose you to come to you as a physician? And I really feel that because I feel like when my patients come to me, that we're choosing each other to connect with. More them choosing me than me choosing them. Because this is the person they're coming to heal. And I feel that becomes a calling. And I also felt that at a very young age. So this is really interesting, your journey.
What you just said is so interesting to me because I did hospice work.
Right.
And some people would choose to let their souls leave while I was there.
Right.
And some didn't. And there's the connection, there's a feeling, there's this energetic pull. And people trust you, or some people don't trust anyone. I mean, there's all these different kinds of people, of course, and we all cross over at different stages of our journey. And I always found that the elderly were the ones that chose me to be there, and they would wait till their family left, and then they'd go ahead and go, and they'd tell me, I see my son, and I could see that. And so I'd say, oh, yeah, I see him. He has dark hair. He'd say, oh, yes, that's exactly what he has on. And we'd have this beautiful synergy going on. And it's kind of what we had when we met. It's a synergy of souls. And, our souls know where we belong. And in science even, body, mind, spirit, if more people, more doctors would look at body, mind, spirit connection, there would be so much stronger and more fulfilled healing.
Right.
Because it all connects. We're all interconnected. And that's what they were trying to tell me.
From PMS to perimenopause to menopause to postmenopause, I've lived through it all. And through every stage, one thing becomes clear. Hormone fluctuations change how our bodies regulate temperature, especially at night. When your body overheats, even slightly, it disrupts deep, restorative sleep. The kind of sleep your hormones, metabolism, and mood depend on. That's why I can't live without my Rani Lounge pajamas. Their advanced technology activates natural fibers, making the fabric moisture-resistant, naturally fresh, and ultra-breathable, allowing your body to stay cool and regulate temperature the way nature intended. Better temperature control means deeper sleep sleep, better recovery, and a body that feels truly at ease. Whether at home or traveling, staying cool, fresh, and comfortable has never felt so effortless. Go to RaniLounge.com, that's RaniLounge.com, and use my code HealthyDoc15 and get 15% off your first order and experience sleep the way it was meant to be. It's funny, as you're saying this, I'm thinking there's a lot of apprehension to death. There's a lot of denial and apprehension and, negative connotation with death. At the end of the day, we are all cycling, right? Just as a woman cycles in her menstrual cycle and the cycles around the moon, we're cycling life and death. And death has become something really sort of an anxiety-provoking conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I lost, when we met, I had just lost my dog, Mimi. And it really affected me. I'd had a lot of, family members, grandparents, aunts, cousins pass away. My cousins passed at a very young age. But the dog of mine that passed away really hit me hard. And the grieving process of that was, I would say, the most painful grieving process I've ever felt. And it was strange. I met you at that time, and I remember you saying that it doesn't, the grieving, what did you say? Something like grieving doesn't choose you, or something. I can't remember.
Grief's in charge.
Grief's in charge. Yes.
Yes.
It doesn't.
I tell people it's in the corner doing push-ups waiting for you to be vulnerable. So be prepared. It'll come out of nowhere.
Right. It's like a wave.
Yes. It's like a wave. I remember when my mom passed, I was looking at a can of beans in a grocery store and I just burst into tears. And my mom had no connection to beans.
Right.
But I just felt it then, and that grief took over.
Yes.
And we can't measure grief no more than we can measure love. But, going back to what you said about people feeling fearful of dying, or transitioning, whatever they choose to call it, life and death are synonymous, and they are the same. So when you're birthed, you're going through a tunnel, your mother's womb. You're fighting, and you're trying not to come out, and you want to, and you're feeling this push, like you have to. And you get out, and you're being poked and prodded, and they're putting, they're moving you around, and there's bright lights. And then they wrap you in a blanket of love.
Right.
And you're put in your mother's arms or your father's arms, and you're at peace. And you're filled with love. When you pass, you're fighting it. You're afraid.
Right.
Most people are afraid of how they're going to die.
Right.
I don't have fear of where I'm going. I have fear of how I'll go.
Right.
And that's just the truth. But we fight it, and we're afraid, and it's the unknown, and we don't know what's happening. And then the next thing you know, we're wrapped in a blanket of love. We go through the tunnel, we're wrapped in a blanket of love, and we are safe.
So do you believe how we're born is exactly how we're going to, in terms of the feeling?
The process is
the same.
Yeah, it is.
That just makes sense.
I just know that because I went through it, and it's
Yes.
just so, it ends up being such a beautiful process, and but we have so much fear around it, and that was created by society. We were not born to be fearful of death. We actually innately came from there, and we know this is a journey here. We know the minute we are able to understand that people leave, and we are brought into this world and living the world knowing that people are coming and going, and but yet it seems mysterious to us.
Right.
There's the confusion. Everyone does it.
Right.
Yet,
it's a natural cycle of life. Yes.
Yeah.
Yet we're fearful of it. Where do you think that came from?
Society, I think. Watch movies. Where do you think being afraid of spirit comes from?
Right.
You watch a movie, turn on the television, and also even news. Anywhere that you look, you see, oh my God, she's sick, she's gonna die, and I'm saying, oh my God, they're so lucky.
Right.
They are going to go through this process and see this beautiful light that I was able to see, and have this beautiful experience of the afterlife again.
Right.
So quickly, or maybe they lived 90 years and they're ready, they're ready for that process. So either way, I don't want to die. I love this journey.
Right.
I want to go get my margarita and I want to, go make love and, all those things that we
Right.
do. But what I've learned is that as I accept that the process is moving forward, I become more peaceful in it and less fearful. So I think we get ready to get ready.
My grandmother used to say to me, if you knew how happy the loved one is that's passing, you wouldn't be so sad because they're celebrating, and that really stuck with me. And she was a really deep, she was like a philosopher, and she would meditate at 4 a.m. every single day. And she would teach me all these, lessons about life and death at a very young age. And I would just sit and listen to her because I thought it was super interesting. And I, at that age had been to quite a few funerals and my parents wanted to teach me about life and death. And I'm glad that they did. But I remember when my bird died when I was a really young girl, it really affected me, even though I'd had the teachings and I'd had the understanding of life and death. It's still not easy. But I want to move into something with respects to the NDEs and the studies done around it.
Mm-hmm.
I know you studied under Dr. Raymond Moody, which I think was super. I've looked at a lot of his work. And can you tell us a little bit more about Raymond and his work and any kind of studies done around NDEs?
Raymond was my bucket list.
Yes.
And when he opened up some classes, Psychomantium was the first class I took from him, which is what years ago, centuries ago. If you remember any philosophical stories, they used to go downstairs into this well and they'd look into the well. They called it mirror gazing, I think. And so he created a way to do that in this day and age, where we could see spirits through water. He does it through mirrors. And so anyway, I did that and I thought, oh, this is interesting. It was a little woo-woo for me, honestly, but I thought it was pretty interesting. And he did it very scientifically. So I love that. He's so educated. He is the kindest man I have ever met. He is probably one of the smartest, most intelligent men I've ever met. And so learning from him was a privilege. And he was the founder or the father of the study of near-death experiences. And I wanted to be a part of that and work with children who had near-death experiences. And he was doing a doctorate program. And so I decided to step into that. And it was an arts doctorate, in the arts arena, mystical arts arena. And I thought that was very interesting for Dr. Moody. But he was a professor and he studied everything. And one day I was with him and I said, I didn't see the tunnel. I read your book and everybody says the tunnel. And I said, why didn't I see the tunnel? And I was a little bit disturbed by that.
It was a well.
And he said, yeah. And he said that to me. And once he said that, it changed the value of my experience in some way. And
It clicked with you somehow.
Yeah,
it made sense.
Yeah. And he said, oh, well, your story, I've heard a lot of stories like yours. Of course, we can't put everything in a book. But he said, you remember it's metaphorical. And he explained things to me. And the more I read, the more I understand. And then I asked him about when I worked hospice, when I would see these things happen and I'd watch people cross. And he said that's called a shared death experience. And a lot of people who have NDEs actually have shared death experiences and people who don't. And so you're in a room with someone that you love, whether it be your animal or a child or, a mother, and they have this beautiful experience of crossing over and you are going into that experience with them and you actually sense what's happening. You might see it. And so now he has a book out about shared death experiences. So all of it made sense to me then, and I could put 2 and 2 together because as a child, everything seemed so confusing and you don't really trust it.
Right.
But I just knew what my journey was.
Wow. And that's a really young age to know where your journey was.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. And I have to tell you, I tried to control everything in my life. I was a little codependent. I wanted to control my life. I wanted to be safe.
Right.
And, growing up in an alcoholic home, I wanted to be safe. So I wanted everything to go okay. And they told me what you try to control controls you. And it absolutely did. And so when I got older, I finally realized, oh, I'm doing the human experience. I tried to control everything, even though I knew better. And I let go of a lot of that. And it doesn't mean I never try, but I did let go of a lot of that. And things started to unfold beautifully. And I recognized that what I try to control controlled me instead of allowing them to pave the path.
That's beautiful. I think we should cheers for that.
Yes, I think we should. Cheers.
We're drinking my vitamin C cocktail.
Oh my God, so good. This is so delicious. No, seriously, this is really good.
I want to share something that could literally slow down how you age, inside and out. Let's talk about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBOT. You've probably heard of it being used for athletes or wound healing, but what you may not know is the latest research is showing powerful benefits for cellular regeneration, brain health, and even reversing some biological markers of aging. Hyperbaric chamber works where you breathe in oxygen at higher than normal pressure. This process stimulates your tissues with oxygen and beyond what your body can normally get in. That extra oxygen jumpstarts your cells, helps natural repair processes, reduces inflammation, and boosts collagen production. It even stimulates the growth of new blood vessels. Studies have shown improvements in telomere length, which are kind of like protective caps on your DNA that shorten as you age. Longer telomeres, that's linked to healthier aging. If you're feeling the effects of aging, maybe it's slower recovery, brain fog, or skin that's lost its luster and glow, hyperbaric oxygen might be a powerful tool to help you feel sharper, stronger, and more vibrant. Go to oxyhealth.com, that's OXYHEALTH.com, and type in discount code HealthyDoc10 for your first order. I want to learn more about creating our soul contracts. You talk about that in your book. Explain to me, for the listeners out there, what is a soul contract?
Well, soul contract is something that your soul wants to resonate in understanding. It's really simple. In my book, everything is simplified so that you can understand it. There's no complicated information. And it's because people need to understand. It changes the journey for them. And so in a soul contract, you might be deciding, I'll give you an example, that you want to be married and your soul wants to resonate in the understanding and the feeling of that. We have to have an experiential situation, and that's why we're here. You wouldn't get married there, and you wouldn't be able to hug and all those things on the other side because you are energetically there. And it's like a 3D hologram.
Okay.
That's what I saw. And that's the best way I can explain it. And so we come here for the tangible, for the experiential part. So if I told you everything about the ocean, but you had never seen it, you had never put your feet in the sand, you had never inhaled the salt air and rolled in the waves, you wouldn't understand it. And so we come here for that. So in a soul contract, your soul might want to experience the understanding of marriage. You will be married. Absolutely. Who you marry, how long you're married, the kind of marriage you have, etc. is free will. We have doors we can open.
What if you keep getting married? I've been married twice now, and I publicly haven't talked about it, but it's one of the areas, I mean, my sister jokes around and she calls me Elizabeth Taylor. I'm like, it's only 2 marriages.
I have 2.
Do you?
Yeah.
So was that part of our soul contract that we wanted to have marriages?
I certainly did expand our soul,
Okay.
Going through that experience. But I think, let me just have one more sip. It is so good. I think that with a soul contract, we have doors, and each door has a different journey for us, and we choose that door. So maybe I open a door and I go, "Ooh, I don't like the way this person looks." Internally, I don't like this energy. I close the door. Or I don't like this energy, but maybe I'm wrong, and I open the door and I marry them. Right? Or if I had closed the door, I might move to a different door. And, people tell me, well, I went into this door when here I am married to, let's say, a narcissist, and I don't know what to do. And I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. And this is what was planned for me. And I say, it's a door. Open it. Open it. and make a different decision so that you have something happy in your life and joyful in your life. Do something that brings your soul peace, because you have that option, and that's free will.
Right. So it's not like, it's not, it's part of our spiritual growth, right? I guess.
Yes.
It was my dharmic. Was my dharma?
Yes.
Or my
could be,
karma?
or your karma.
Okay.
Yes.
How do we explain the difference between dharma and karma? For those listening?
Dharma is, we're in the oneness, the consciousness, the whole consciousness. And we have either had enough lifetimes, whatever your belief system is, everyone believes differently, or we've learned enough in our soul growth that we are now in a phase of being in the consciousness of the world, the actual energy of that. So we're not singular.
Okay.
Karma is more singular. The things that we have done that we need to understand. Maybe they aren't good things. Maybe they are. It doesn't have to be bad.
Because when we hear karma, we think about, oh, your karma's coming for you, right? We always think it's like a bad thing. Is it always a bad thing?
No, I think people think that, but I know that I've done beautiful things for people and it's come back to me tenfold.
Okay.
So karmically, I put that energy out and it came back.
Right.
So I think people call it the negative, but I call it the seemingly negative, because in truth, I've learned my greatest lessons through my karmic events and my pain. So I find pain and joy to be equal in value. And in fact, I believe my pain teaches me more because I want out. I want to grow. I want to expand in my pain. And that can be physical pain, like a doctor, and it can be emotional pain. But I want to expand. And so my soul is crying for that and begging for that. And so I change and I do something different.
Your book had so much in it. When I was thinking about what am I going to choose? I'm like, I'm just going to intuitively choose a page of that I landed on. And one that I kept coming up over and over again was like when somebody comes up to you and says, this happened to me a lot when I was a kid. People come up to me and go, gosh, you're a really old soul. And is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, I believe that means souls always are and always will be. They are never gone. However, some come to this planet many times, some come never.
Right.
Some come once. That would be a new soul on this planet. And so the experiences are different. Okay. And, I've known old souls, and I knew they were old souls because of their life journey that learned nothing. And I've met new souls that are learning at a rapid pace and are beautiful and energetically present. So, it just depends upon, an old soul. When someone says that, it's usually a very great compliment, quite honestly, because what they're saying is they see something in you that's wise.
Right. Interesting.
And the more we come here, the more wise we become.
Right, because you've been given so many lessons and you come back in your incarnation to learn those lessons. And what happens when you've learned all your lessons? Does everybody fully learn all their lessons?
People always ask me that. I love that question. I love it because it's so important. If you understand that love is the hierarchy.
Okay.
Not spirit. Love. And the higher or the more you love, the higher you vibrate. The higher you vibrate, the closer you are to source.
Yes.
So we come here to learn, number one, our soul purpose ultimately is self-love.
It is.
That's the bottom line, and it's the hardest thing we do. We can love others. We innately come here to love others. How we love them matters, because the more self-love we have, of course, the more extensive our love can be towards others. But we innately come here to love others. But self-love, I'll tell you how beautiful you are, and then I'll go, oh, this doesn't look right, and look at my chin, and I'll do all of that.
Right.
As and it's usually for women, it's usually physical. For men, it's usually achievement.
Sure.
It's very interesting. And we've been set in stone in that, and we have to break through that. We have to break those stones, down into little tiny pebbles and learn to love ourselves. And that is the true reason we're here, is for the experiences to create the possibility to love ourselves.
That's so beautiful, Susan. I've built my entire clinical philosophy and even wrote a book called Younger Skin Starts in the Gut around one simple truth. If your gut isn't optimal, nothing else works. Genova Diagnostics GI Effects test is the gold standard in functional stool testing, mapping your microbiome, digestion, inflammation, and nutrient absorption with clinical precision. It's a crappy job, but someone has to do it. And no one does it better than Genova. Visit genovaconnect.com and use my code HEALTHYDOC15 for 15% off your first stool test. That's a long way to explain it to patients, because I do have a lot of patients that have lost loved ones or have been through a divorce. And, you know, love is the answer at the end of the day, but there are different stages of grief too, you know, and there's different, you know, you've got to get through that grief before you can feel that love, right? And so I wanted to sort of rewind here and go back to grief, because a lot of people listening now might have loved ones that are terminally ill or have had, you know, someone they love pass away, or someone go through a divorce, which is like a death. You know, I went through it. It felt like a death. Susan, how do we are there different stages of grief that you have specifically defined? And if so, how do the listeners work through those stages and coping? Because you do a lot of counseling in this area.
Yeah. I think for me, I share the different types of grief first, so there's anticipatory grief, which is we're anticipating the loss of someone, which would be someone terminally ill.
Sure.
There's, you know, murders, there's suicides, you know, which I experienced a lot of, both my brothers and my mother. So I've gone through some very deep grief myself, and several friends actually. So it's been in my journey. I must have wanted to understand that energy.
Right. Karmically.
So I could help others, I think.
Right.
You know, and I get a lot of that in my office. But so the different types of grief don't change the actual process of grief. So, you know, we go through that denial, like it can't be. It just can't be. And then we go through that anger. What's going on here? Why is this happening to me? And then we go to the bargaining. Well, what if I go to the doctor and I do this and I do that? And what if I eat right? And we go through all this bargaining. And then we go back to the anger. Nothing's working. And we continue on this pattern. And then we get to that acceptance stage. And you know, what I try to explain to people is that we have been grieving since the moment we were born. Yes, they were small griefs. Mom takes your bottle, you grieve.
Right.
Mom takes your blankie away and says the trash man took it, you grieve. And we go through all these different griefs, even down to losing something that seemed important to us.
Right.
So when people come to me and say, I don't know how to do this, I tell them, you don't understand the intensity of this particular grief, but you do know how to grieve. So let's step into that, because you innately understand this process, and you will go through this process if you allow it. And when you run from grief, as they shared with me, you will chase you.
Okay.
The goal is to step into it.
Right.
And to make sure you have a healthy support system. And if you don't, find one. Because when you go through what I went through, which was died by suicide, people pulled away from me. It was their deepest fear, right? They didn't know how to deal with it. And I want to say to the people that are experiencing loved ones that they know that are going through the grief process with someone they love, is to just be there. You don't have to say anything. Just be present and hold that space for them. Let them speak. They want to talk about their loved ones. Don't discourage it. Let them. You know, they want to share. They want to talk about all the little nuances. When you lost your baby, your Mimi, you know, you wanted to talk about all the beautiful connection you had. So do they. So just be there and follow the lead of the person who's grieving, and you can't make a mistake.
And that brings me to a question I have, and thank you for that. That was beautiful, and it makes sense. But my question to you is, like, when someone is grieving, like I found initially, me personally, I couldn't look at photos of her or videos of her. Like I found that it made me worse. It took time. So in that grieving process, are there things that you should stay away from?
No.
You just go through it.
You go with what works
Get in
for
there.
you. Honor your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're so ashamed to cry in front of people. We call it ugly cry. That's how
I know
ashamed
that's
we are.
true. Actually, I know it's
Yes.
like
I'm ugly crying, you
it's
know?
so important to get that emotion out because keeping it in results in what I know with patients is chronic illness.
Yes.
You know, is that repression.
Yes. And, you know, I really believe that if we just follow our intuition and what works for us, that everyone else will follow that lead.
Mm-hmm.
Every healthy person in our life, the ones that aren't going to drop away,
Right.
that aren't afraid of death or afraid to be there for you because if they feel like it's going to rub off on them. And so, you know, it's just honor yourself. Don't worry about how you grieve. Just allow yourself to grieve.
I love that. And that's why I love this book so much because I feel like what you did in this book as well is you didn't just write a book about what you went through. You actually give certain exercises here in your book at the end of the book, like what sort of you give tips on what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think that really helps people a lot versus just writing about it. So, and how to integrate it.
Mm-hmm.
And what it means. So I think that's the beautiful part of a book like this. Because, for example, you have like how to see signs of, you know, grief or how to sort of
Signs of the loved ones that come through.
the signs that the loved ones are coming through. You know, it sort of validates everything you're feeling that you can't really say.
Right. And mediumship, you know, it's very woo-woo to people. And it's unfortunate because the people that do break down that barrier and come to me, they'll say, I feel like I've had a year of therapy.
Right.
Just knowing my loved ones there, you couldn't know what you knew, Susan. You couldn't know our last conversation, but you did. You couldn't know their name, but you did. You couldn't know what they had, what was wrong with them, what we did for them, what we didn't, who they were with, but you did. And now I know they're around me. You knew the signs they were giving me that no one knew. Now I know. And I feel closer to them. And I tell these loved ones, it's just a conversation. Talk to them. They want to be near you. Love does not die. No more than you've forgotten about them have they forgotten about you.
That's beautiful. And you told me something yesterday on the phone about the heart and the mind and the connection, even with the physiological connection. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So our heart has 40,000 neurons, neurons. You'd probably know the best name for that. And it is actually a mini brain. And they have found this out rather recently. And they have found out through studies that the heart actually talks to the brain more than the brain talks to the heart, which is amazing to me. You know, it's like, that's why I think, you know, through grief, people can, you know, die of a broken heart. But the heart has memory base and it can carry memories and it has a learning capacity, just like the brain. It's a mini brain. And when you recognize that and you know that the soul seats, S-E-A-T, seats in the heart, you know that you have this ability to carry memory to the other side.
That's amazing.
And so when you carry that memory and someone you're sitting with on this side says, well, here's some memories for you. Your loved one's telling me because they can, because they're taking that with them. We don't take our brain with us to the other side. It's full of gunk. It's full of junk. Look at it. We remember everything, you know, things that aren't good for us and things we don't need there. But the things that touch our heart, and there we're back to the love, those are the things we remember. And so they're valuable to us. So our loved ones remember those things too. And when you recognize that, you can have a conversation with them and you can seat with them and you can feel that presence of them. And you can recognize, you know, I call it the 3 A's. It's my favorite thing to teach. I call it awareness, acceptance, and action. And awareness is I become aware that something's changed in the room. Maybe it's gotten cold. Maybe my goosebumps are coming. Maybe, you know, there's something changed in the room. And they become aware that I'm aware. And they get excited. You know, they're like, okay, she's aware. And then I get to that acceptance that, okay, something is in this room. I can feel it. It's nighttime. I wake up. Something's here. I can feel it. All of us have these experiences. No one can deny it. They can try, but we all have them. they become aware that you've accepted something's changed. And then it's action, which is just trusting that they may be there. Just trust that. And you will find that they will reveal themselves to you in some way, shape, or form. And it works every time.
That is so beautiful, Susan. I can't thank you enough for these beautiful lessons and this book that you've written. I mean, it's really one of those things that can really take you through personal growth and really help you understand that our souls are eternal. And really the only thing that matters is love, which is just beautiful. Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons. Go and get this book. Susan, where can people find you? Where can people find your book? And
my book is anywhere books are sold. Hay House is the publisher, so they can even go to Hay House. They can find me on susangrau.com, and they can read all about me on that. Susan Grau Official on all social media. And I have a podcast that I just started. It's called Infinite Wisdom. I'm writing a new book, Infinite Healing, about the soul.
Oh, okay.
So I keep tripping that up.
Okay.
But it's Infinite Wisdom. And I talk all about all this. And I just talk. I don't even have guests. I just talk. And I share what I've learned throughout my journey of all these years, and also my experience and my connection to spirit.
It's incredible. Thank you so much for coming all the way here to LA to come and do the interview with me. It was healing to my soul. It was chicken soup for my soul. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm so excited for your new book.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm just so excited to be with you and see you again. It makes me so happy.
But before you go, I have one gift to give you.
Okay.
I don't know if you know my work and what I'm known for.
Beauty.
And?
Wellness.
And? Let's see if you can get it right.
I don't know.
No one really wants to talk about it, but it's poop.
Oh, that's right. When I watch your stuff, you're right. Everybody needs help in that arena.
Right? So that's
everybody.
That's why I've given you, in addition to some goodies of mine, I've given you a stool kit. This is how you know that I really love you and I appreciate you. I love all my guests on the show because coming here and bringing your expertise to my audience means everything to me. So this is me giving you a gift of health and wellness. This is going to measure your gut microbiome, and it's going to let us know if you have good bacteria, bad bacteria, parasites, all that fun stuff. And you know how you said your heart talks to your brain? Well, the gut also talks to your brain. So I'm going to give you this as a little gift from Dante and I. And when your results come back, I will review them with you so we can work on supporting your gut microbiome. And I've got some goodies for you. I got you some beauty in a bottle and some lovely
I'm so
goods.
excited. Thank you so much. You wouldn't think I'd be excited about poop, but I am. I want to know what's going on inside my stomach, inside my gut.
Absolutely.
Because gut health is everything. It's all the connections, isn't it?
It is. And I'm excited to see who's living there. So let's find out.
Yeah, let's hope it's healthy.
Yes. If it's not, we can do something about it. That's the key. Isn't I use a lab called Genova that really, they've been doing it for I've been using them for over 20 years, and I've been able to find all sorts of bad guys that have actually changed people's overall health and wellness just from analyzing the gut.
I probably need that desperately. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Well, I can't wait. Thank you, Susan, for being here. Everyone, go and get her book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons. This is a must read for everyone. And thank you for being here.